This is Reiwa Gaming Matt, presenting you Gaming Life in Japan. This week's topic, a guide to buying games in Japan.
Hi everyone, Matt here, and it's time for another in my series of Japan in Gaming. Yes, we're going to talk about important things about Japan in gaming today, and this episode is all about buying games in Japan. Let's call it my Japan Gamers Buying Guide. A lot of people have been asking me over the years, what's the best way to buy games? Where should I buy games? How should I do it in Japan? Because there's so many ways to buy games, and there's so many people out there that want to buy particularly retro games and great stuff, and they want to get good deals, but they really don't know how to do it in Japan. And I've been able to give a lot of advice, and so I want to spread that advice to other people, and that's what I'm going to do today. And also, I will say that I've noticed a lot of particularly big name YouTubers out there that have been coming to Japan lately, some that want to come to Japan, and their videos have been fun to watch. They reminded me of when I first came to Japan and my own experiences that first month or so of my first year in Japan. But I also was watching the videos, and a lot of times I'm like, oh, if only they had asked me for advice. If only they came to me for advice. So that's what this video is about. Now, the very first thing I'm going to say is number one, if you're coming to Japan, enjoy yourself. Have a great time. Do what you want to do. If you love video games, go to the video game stuff. If you love anime, do the anime stuff. If you love the culture, do this culture stuff. But if I must give you my personal advice, especially if you have time, open your mind. Open your mind to a much more broader ideal of seeing what Japan has to offer, because Japan is such an amazing country full of so many amazing things, amazing places to see, amazing activities to do, amazing things that you will just never see any other country or in every other culture in the world. And a lot of people that come here, even on long-term study abroads, will miss out on a lot of these things because they just want to come for video games. They want to come for anime. So if you're thinking of making a trip to Japan, definitely broaden your horizons and do a lot more. It will really help you out. But now let's get into games. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go through each little aspect of Japanese game sales and what you should do and give you my tips. And we're going to be talking about new games, we're going to be talking about used games, and we're going to be talking about retro games. And I might throw in a few other things as well there. So, first of all, let's talk about particularly new games. And my number one rule that I should say is this: for the most part, avoid big name electronic stores, stores like Yamada Denki or Lala. It's I can't remember the name in Tokyo. It's a little different there. Like a big camera or Yodobashi camera. And the reason I say avoid these stores, if at all possible, for the most part, is because most of these stores sell games at their retail prices. And if you've been complaining about the fact that next generation prices are $70 in the United States, oh boy, you don't want to know how much some of the games can cost in Japan. Japanese game prices are very expensive, they're very high. And if you go to a big name store, they're going to sell it at retail price. And that's a big problem because the retail price is going to be very, very high. You want to be able to try to get a discount. Now, some big name stores do offer a little discount, and it's awesome if you can find them in those stores. But the best place to go would be a place like Gayo. Now, Gayo is a video rental store. Yes, they still do exist. And they also sell video games, and they tend to do a discount on the new games that's about equal to the price that you would get off of Amazon. Amazon sells their games with a nice discount for new games. They don't sell them at the regular retail price. They take off like 10%. And so games are very cheap to buy at Amazon. And a lot of people buy games on Amazon these days, including myself, if I want to buy a new game. Gayo, though, is my second option. If I need to go to a store to buy a game, I will go there and buy a game. So it's definitely worth it. I would say, though, it is worth going to a brand name store, a big name store, if you're looking for a game and you can't find it somewhere else that's new. They usually have really good stock. Sometimes you might see bargain bins. These are like bins of games that they have so much supply of, usually terrible games that they're trying to get rid of. I only usually see this, though, in Tokyo. I'm sure it's in big cities, too, like Osaka. But your mileage may vary there. But yes, if you want to buy new games, go to places that offer discounts like Gayo. And I think Book Off also sells new games now too, with some discounts, but sometimes they're the same price as the regular retail price. But yes, if you go to a regular store, you're going to have to deal with that. But if you can order online, which most people probably won't if they're just coming to Japan as tourists, that's the way to go. Now let's go into used game sales. Used game sales. And this is very important because used game sales are very, 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 very big part of Japanese gaming culture. Number one rule there is don't worry so much about buying a used game in Japan. It is not like buying a game at GameStop. That's something that I think is really very important to understand. It's like you go to GameStop in America and you're going to buy a used game. It might have stickers all over the product. It might have stickers on the disc. It might be dirty. It might be in very bad condition. Japanese gamers like to keep everything in very, very good condition. And if you buy a game used, it's almost like buying it new in most cases. And you're going to get a nice discount on it. And it's going to contain everything inside. It's going to contain any manuals inside, it's going to contain any little pieces of paper that were included. It might include download codes. However, most of those download codes are not usable, but don't just throw them out when you get it, because sometimes some people don't use those codes because what they do is they sell the game really quickly. They sell the game back almost after they beat it. That's why you saw a lot of people selling Last of Us 2 quickly. It wasn't because necessarily they hated the game. It's probably because they beat the game really quickly and they wanted to get their money back as soon as possible. But yeah, used games in Japan are great. And the prices for used games are not so bad, of course. Yes, we have the rare games that are very expensive, that are 10, 20, 30,000 yen, or 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 yen. But most retro games and most, recent games, once they go to sell used, they start dropping in price really low. And so a lot of systems are really cheap these days. PlayStation 1 and 2 and 3, most of the games are in really good price that you don't have to pay a whole lot for, with some exceptions. Famicom, Super Famicom, you can get really good deals on cartridges there. Unfortunately, a lot of the smaller systems are getting harder to find in a lot of stores. Stores like Geo, which just sells used games, a Book Off, have been kind of like liquidating their Sega sections, particularly liquidating anything past before PlayStation 3. So it's getting harder to find some of these games, and so you have to keep that in mind. Now there are places you can go to, and we will obviously talk about that in a moment. But yes, it's going to be harder to find like Dreamcast and Sega Saturn these days in a lot of places, but it's not impossible. That leads me to next. We're going to talk about Akihabara. Now, Akihabara is the Tokyo, the place you go in Tokyo if you're interested in anime and video games. It's the electric town, and it's the place that everyone wants to go to. First time I went there, it was like a kid in a candy store, and I saw all the stores and everything they had on sale. I was so happy. I was enjoying every moment of it. It was fantastic. But there's some rules I want to say about Akihabara. And the number one rule I want to talk about is Super Potato. And if you don't know what Super Potato is, it's of course an interesting name. It is the biggest well-known used game store in Japan. It is a chain store, but its main store that people know about is in Akihabara. It's on like the third and fourth floor, I believe, of one building. I always go every now and then to that store, and you constantly see like gaming journalists going there from the West talking about the store, and obviously it's a very popular place because they have an incredible selection of used game items, and they have things you wouldn't believe you can find anywhere else, including Atari 2600 games in their boxes, things like that. Game soundtracks that might have only had 5 copies. Games that were incredibly rare. They'll have disc system games from Famicom Disk System just perfectly in their cases, and the discs all ready to go. It's a great place to go to. But I would say if you're going to go buy games in Akihabara, don't go. Actually, let me say that again. Go there first, but don't buy there first. And the reason is that Super Potato tends to be the more expensive place to buy used games. They know that the market, a lot of people will come there, particularly from foreign countries, and they can sell the games at any price that they want. And so a lot of games tend to be very expensive there. So what I end up doing is I end up going to other places around Tokyo, Akihabara. There's a lot of great places you can go in Akihabara. Smaller stores, even bigger name stores like Trader, Trader is a great place to go. It's another used game store that's very well known. It also has a retro section that's small but been growing over the years. And I tend to find that the prices outside of Super Potato at other stores are better, much better, much cheaper, much easier to handle. But the thing is, of course, with Super Potato is that you are probably not going to find everything you want in any other store. So the reason I say go to Super Potato first, go there, price check items, see what they got, then go look around Akihabara, see if you can find it somewhere else, and then at the end of the day, if you couldn't, go back to Super Potato and pick up the item, because probably that you're not going to find it anywhere else if you can't find it in their store there. Super Potato is a great place to go. You should absolutely go and check it out. It's worth it if you're a video game fan, but yeah, don't be surprised at the prices, because they definitely be pretty high. So I mentioned Trader is a good place. What's some other good places to go to? Well, obviously, I said Geo. Geo, of course, is a place to go for new games. It's also a place to go for used games, particularly for the current generation. It's, again, a video rental store, but you don't have to be a member to go there. You can just go and buy games there. And they have a great selection of, PlayStation 4 games and Switch games. And remember that many of these games have English on them. Particularly this generation, PlayStation 4, a lot of games have English on the game itself. Same with Nintendo. In fact, if you go on the Nintendo store in Japan, you can see what languages are on each game, so it's easier to buy the copy that you buy, because you'll know that English is on it. Another place to go is a place called Book Off, which is a used bookstore chain in Japan. They're all over Japan. You can pretty much go to any Book Off and find a used game section. And some of these stores will have really old games, but some of them will only have like the current generations, just due to shelf space. But they have a subsidiary store, and it has a funny name, and everyone makes fun of it. It's called Hard Off. And get your giggles out of the way right now if you can. But Hard Off is the hardware store, the mechanical hardware store for used items. So places you can buy guitars and computers, used records, used LDs, and of course used games. And Hard Off tends to have more of the really old retro stuff, the Famicons, the Super Famicons, the Dreamcasts, the Sega Saturns, depending on where you go. And you can find a lot of stuff there at great prices. And it's really worth checking out those places. You can find a lot of those places around town in Tokyo and any city pretty much in Japan. It's a very big chain. It's really worth going to. So definitely check out Book Off. If you can find a Hard Off, there's not many locations compared to the Book Off main brand. But if you can find one, check it out, because it's worth it. And when you go to these stores, these used game stores like Trader and Book Off and Hard Off, especially Hard Off, look in the junk aisle. And I know you're going to say to myself, Matt, why would I go looking through junk? Well, the word junk, and I hate to use that quotations because I hate that. Junk in this case doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work or it's just trash. In Japan, as I said before, used games have to be basically in perfect condition to sell them. A store, if you were to take a game in with a case that's broken or like, what is it, an instruction booklet with things written on it, or stickers on the disc or stickers on the case, they can't sell that because there's no value to it. And so they might buy it from you for a few yen, and they'll just throw it in a junk bin. And that's the thing. The junk bin is basically, we didn't test this stuff, but it probably works, but it's like not complete, or it's dirty, or it's got something on it that makes it less valuable. But you can find some great deals on some games. And lately I've been going to the junk aisle to buy PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 games. And you can find a lot of great games there for incredibly low prices. Usually about 100 yen for a lot of these games, because they just want to get rid of them. And if you're like me, someone who doesn't care about the cases, doesn't care about anything like that, just cares about the game, that's the best great thing to do. So absolutely check that out. Now, we've talked about buying used games. We've talked about buying new games. Don't forget that you can also buy other stuff. You can buy a lot of video game memorabilia. There's a lot of stores like that in Akihabara. There's stores like the Nintendo store that's in Tokyo now. That's really hard to get into. If you can get there into you can. That would be great. I would say that if you want to buy game memorabilia, I did mention before, don't go to like brand name stores for buying video games, but it might be good to go to those stores for the video game memorabilia because you actually might find some things that might not be sold at some stores, and it's really, really, really worth that. Now, what are the systems that are easy to find and what are the prices these days? What are the games that are easy to find and prices these days? Well, obviously, the current generation, the PlayStation 4, very easy to find games for it anywhere. The Switch, very easy to find games for it anywhere. The Switch, however, used game prices don't usually go down pretty fast at all. In fact, most games are pretty expensive. So if you're going to buy a Switch game, I almost recommend buying it new because you just get a new copy and it's like perfect. And a used copy sometimes is good, but it's, for the price, it's not that great. Some games go down low in price, but most don't. PlayStation 4 games, though, lots of great good prices. PlayStation 3 is still pretty plentiful in most places and very getting cheaper and cheaper every day. So if you're trying to build up your PlayStation 3 library, that's worth it. PlayStation 2, lots of stores across Japan have huge selection of PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 games, and the prices are so low because no one's buying them anymore. And you can buy a lot of great gems, a lot of great titles for almost nothing on the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1, with the exception of very rare titles, of course. Rare titles do exist. For instance, the Serial Experiments Lane game, which I've seen for like 50,000 yen. It's a game I really want to get one day, but not going to spend that much money on a game. But definitely those systems are very popular. Nintendo systems are very popular. But systems like the Wii U is easy to get. You don't have to really pay a lot of money for Wii U games and even Wii games. The systems that I see that are very harder to find these days, Dreamcast is pretty much dried up. It's hard to find a lot of Dreamcast games in stores. Sega Saturn, the same way. Anything cartridge-based is kind of getting harder to find in the old systems. So like anything Famicom, Super Famicom, a lot of stores don't sell them anymore. But if they do, they're not that terribly badly priced. PC Engine has been, of course, the big one that everyone talks about as being very difficult to find and sold out everywhere. You see a lot of articles when Tokyo Game Show comes out of foreigners who go into Super Potato and are like, oh, PC Engine's completely sold out. Everything's gone. And I'm like, well, you came during Tokyo Game Show when everyone's in Tokyo to go to Tokyo Game Show. So, of course, they're going to go to the big name stores to buy all the PC Engine stuff. Go back 2-3 weeks later, you'll end up seeing more PC Engine games back on the shelves. But yeah, some of those systems are getting harder to find, and the rarer the system, the rarer the price, or the higher the price, I should say. But there's also places you can go in Tokyo. For instance, Akihabara, there are places you can buy arcade boards. They have a lot of arcade board stores. So you can buy a lot of things video game wise if you know where to look. And the best thing to do is get a guide, look through it, and do a lot of walking around Akihabara to find those places because there's a lot of great stores that are just hidden around that even I'm still trying to discover. Now, I mostly talked about people, that are probably going to come to Japan for a short time. They want to buy games. How can they buy games? What can they do? Well, the next thing I want to talk about, and this will be the last thing, is what if you live in Japan or you want to live in Japan or you want to buy games from America? What should I do? What should I do? Where should I go? And, of course, you're going to go online. And one of the best things is Amazon Japan is a great place to buy games online. You can buy a lot of games from Amazon Japan these days, and they ship, of course, across the world. And like I said, the games on Amazon Japan are priced really well. They're very, very cheap, much cheaper than buying new other places. They're very quick to reduce the price of games if they're really bad or they sell pretty badly. And Amazon has a fantastic used game selection too. Now, the problem with buying from Amazon and a lot of these places online is they don't ship to America. So if you really want to buy from them, you may have to use a company that will ship things to you, via them buying it for you. It costs an extra fee. I've never done such a thing before, but it's definitely an option. But if you want to get like systems from other generations, like older systems, it is a good thing to go for, to buy from Amazon, even used. And the thing about used, though, you have to be very careful. The listings that they have will have a little detail, and they'll tell you what's what the condition of the game is, and it might say used good or used acceptable, but if you read it, it might say, oh, it's missing the manual, it's missing this, or there's might be a little cut on something. So you have to be very careful. So definitely, if you know Japanese, make sure to use it there. If you don't, use Google Translate. It's not great, but it's not the worst. It'll help you out there. Also, if you live in Japan, Yahoo Auctions is a great place to buy games. I've bought many games there, many used games there, and have had nothing but great success. Same with Amazon. The auction sites are fantastic to buy games. Mercari has come up lately. I've never used it, but people definitely use it there. So there's definitely a lot of places you can go to, and you can even actually go online to many of these companies and then buy the games directly from them. Unfortunately, most of the companies will only ship to Japan-based people, but some of them do ship abroad. Falcom, for instance, the great company Falcom that makes all the great RPGs like the Legends of Trails of series, the Legend of Hero series, the Ys, and so forth. They ship their games abroad, and although right now during the COVID virus, I think they're not doing that. But you definitely have options to buy games in Japan online from even in the West. But definitely there's some roadblocks there. The most important thing to remember about buying games in Japan is that unlike buying games like at GameStop, for the most part, you're going to be in good shape. They treat you well. They treat you with kindness and with great respect. Treating the customer with respect is very important in Japan. And a lot of people love buying games in Japan because of that. You buy a new game, it's always going to be sealed. You buy a used game, it's probably almost 99% going to be in the best condition you've ever seen a used game in your life. You get incredibly great service from companies here, and great service from stores here. And even if you end up buying games like at a brand name store, like New Games or brand name store, I've done it many times, you're still going to get a great service. And if you live here, of course, you get to collect a lot of points as well. So if you go to like a store and use a point card, you can eventually use that and turn it into free games, just like Nintendo's eShop. So buying games in Japan, for the most part, very easy thing to do, not that difficult to do. All you have to do basically is, in my opinion, number one, remember, look around a lot of places. Don't just buy at the first place you go to, because you might just find a better deal somewhere later. Number two, plan your trip out great. Number three, avoid the tourist hotspots as much as possible, but go and have fun. But like that's the reason I say avoid Super Potato, because that's the place that's going to be the most expensive, because that's where a lot of tourists go to. But it might be your only option. And that's basically it. Japanese games, are still being sold in great quantities everywhere, and if you know where to buy them, you're going to get great deals. And you can buy a lot of games for almost no price whatsoever. So it's definitely worth the effort. So that's been my little thing about buying games in Japan. If you have any questions about buying games in Japan, feel free to leave a comment. I can answer them for you. And if you like this video, please give it a like. If you dislike it, give it a dislike. If you have any comments to help me out, that'd be great. But if you're coming to Japan, definitely I wish you good luck. It's a fun thing to come here and be a part of the culture, even for a short time. It's fun to live here. And if you're a gamer, it's a great place to be, because there's a lot of things you can do, not just buying games, but a lot of things you can do on the side too. And we'll talk about that more in this series. It's going to be a series I'm going to be doing from now on, maybe one every week or every 2 weeks, where I talk about an aspect of Japanese gaming culture. Obviously, we talk about Japanese game buying today, a buying guide to how you can do that. We'll also talk about things like the Sero rating system that I've mentioned that I've talked about in the past. We'll talk about game shows like Tokyo Game Show, why it's still important. We'll talk about, the cool games series that you can go see plays for. And we'll talk about a lot of things about gaming culture that just don't get a lot of talk about in the West. But anyway, until then, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment, leave a like. It'd be great. Leave a subscribe if you can. I would definitely hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I'll see you a little later. See ya.
Remember, for all your gaming interests and content from Japan, keep checking out Reiwa Gaming Matt.